When a narcissistic woman is waiting for you to reach out, she rarely announces it directly. Instead, she makes herself visible, not present, not available, visible. This distinction matters. Visibility without engagement is a psychological signal, not a social one. It is the quiet art of being seen without risking exposure. Carl Jung spoke often about the persona, the mask we present to the world, and here that mask is carefully positioned so it can be noticed, but never touched. You may observe her appearing more frequently in shared spaces, resurfacing on social platforms, or subtly re-entering environments connected to you. None of this is accidental. The narcissistic psyche is highly attuned to attention as a source of emotional regulation. Visibility becomes a way of saying, "I am still here," without having to say, "I need you." It preserves pride while inviting pursuit. Psychologically, this behavior serves two functions. First, it tests whether she still exists in your inner world. If you react, by watching, responding, or reaching out, it confirms that her image remains active in your psyche. Second, it allows her to avoid the vulnerability of direct contact. To reach out would mean risking rejection, and for a narcissistic structure, rejection is not merely painful, it threatens identity. So she places herself just close enough to be noticed, but distant enough to deny intention. This is not confusion. It is strategy shaped by fear and ego. The deeper truth is that waiting in this way keeps control intact. She does not move toward you. She positions herself so you move toward her. And this is the moment worth reflecting on. Visibility is not connection. When someone makes themselves seen but not known, the question is not whether they miss you, but whether you are willing to mistake appearance for meaning. After visibility comes contradiction. When a narcissistic woman is waiting for you to reach out, her communication often shifts into something more elusive, mixed signals delivered without words. Silence in this context is not emotional neutrality, it is a psychological posture. Carl Jung reminded us that what is unconscious does not disappear, it communicates indirectly, and this is exactly what happens here. You may notice small, inconsistent gestures, a sudden view, a delayed reaction, a symbolic post that echoes something only you would understand. These moments feel personal, yet they stop just short of intimacy. That tension is the point. Mixed signals allow her to express desire without admitting it, to reach without reaching. They create emotional movement while preserving plausible deniability. Psychologically, this pattern reflects an internal conflict between ego and attachment. The ego demands superiority. I will not chase. Attachment, however, still seeks reassurance. Do I matter to you? The result is contradiction, warmth followed by distance, presence followed by withdrawal. Each fluctuation invites you to interpret, to wonder, and ultimately to act. When you respond, you resolve her inattention for her. From a Jungian perspective, this is projection at work. Instead of confronting her own longing or insecurity, she places the burden of action onto you. You become the one who must translate signals into certainty. If you reach out, she avoids vulnerability. If you don't, she can tell herself she remained detached. But clarity does not come from decoding signals. It comes from observing patterns. Mixed signals are not messages waiting to be understood. They are defenses designed to keep power intact. The more you analyze them, the more you participate in the dynamic they create. And here is the reflection worth carrying forward. When someone's behavior leaves you emotionally guessing, the confusion is not accidental. It is the structure of the relationship itself. Acting from clarity, not curiosity, is how that structure begins to lose its hold. Another quiet but telling sign appears in what she doesn't do. She doesn't close the story. There is no clear ending, no decisive boundary, no moment that says this is finished. Instead, things are left unresolved, suspended in emotional ambiguity. When a narcissistic woman is waiting for you to reach out, this unfinished quality is deliberate. An open ending is an invitation. Carl Jung understood the human tendency to remain psychologically bound to what is incomplete. The psyche seeks closure the way the body seeks balance. Unresolved dynamics continue to live in the unconscious, quietly demanding attention. By preserving ambiguity, she ensures that the connection remains active in your inner world, even in silence. You may notice she avoids final conversations, leaves important questions unanswered, or exits without explanation. This is not carelessness, it is containment. As long as nothing is clearly defined, the relationship remains reversible. You are left wondering what it all meant, and in that wondering, the bond persists. She does not need to reach out because the emotional thread is still intact. From a psychological perspective, this behavior protects the ego while maintaining access to validation. A definitive ending would require her to tolerate loss and accept separation as real. Ambiguity allows her to hold on to possibility without confronting grief or accountability. It keeps the door unlocked, not because she intends to walk through it, but because she wants to know society could. Jung might describe this as an attachment to potential rather than reality. The narcissistic structure often prefers imagined power over lived vulnerability. As long as the door remains open, control feels preserved. The essential insight here is this: closure is not something you receive, it is something you choose. When you stop waiting for clarity from someone who benefits from confusion, you reclaim your psychological ground. An open door only holds power if you keep standing in the doorway rather than reaching out directly. She begins to notice your absence. This is one of the most revealing behaviors. When a narcissistic woman is waiting for you to make the first move, she rarely risks a clear approach. Instead, she measures whether you still exist emotionally by sending ripples through the environment around you. These tests are subtle, indirect, and carefully designed to provoke response without exposure. You might hear about her through mutual connections, notice sudden references to shared memories, or sense a change in tone that seems aimed at you without ever naming you. Psychologically, this is a way of checking attachment while preserving distance. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, those aspects of ourselves we cannot face directly. Here, her desire to be reassured operates in the shadows, expressed through proxies rather than honest contact. These tests serve a dual purpose. On the surface, they appear innocent or coincidental. Beneath that, they ask a very specific question: do I still matter enough to move you? If you respond by asking, reacting, or reaching out, the test is passed. She gains confirmation without having to reveal need. If you don't, she can retreat into detachment and tell herself the silence was mutual. Philosophically, this behavior reflects a fear of direct encounter. To engage openly would require her to face uncertainty and the possibility of rejection. Indirect testing allows her to gather information while avoiding emotional risk. It is control through distance. An important point is this: responding to tests reinforces the pattern. It teaches her that indirectness works, that access to you does not require honesty. Jung emphasized that what we do not confront consciously will return as fate. If you keep answering unspoken questions, you remain bound to a dynamic you never agreed to. So the reflection to carry forward is simple, but demanding. Absence is not something to explain or justify. When you hold your ground without reacting, you stop being an experiment and start being a choice. At the core of this waiting behavior lies something more fundamental than attachment. It is the preservation of ego. When a narcissistic woman waits for you to reach out, it is often because your action serves as proof of her continued psychological authority. Contact from you is not merely communication. It is validation. It reassures her that she still occupies a central position in your inner world. Carl Jung viewed the ego as the organizer of consciousness, constantly defending its image of itself. For a narcissistic structure, that image depends heavily on being desired, influential, and irreplaceable. If she reaches out first, she risks disrupting that image. Initiative would imply uncertainty, and uncertainty threatens the ego's sense of dominance. By waiting, she places the burden of confirmation on you. This dynamic explains why your silence can feel so destabilizing to her. Without your move, there is no external evidence that her self-image still holds power. Waiting becomes a way to force a response without risking rejection. If you reach out, the ego is restored. If you don't, she can protect herself by reframing the situation as choice rather than loss. Philosophically, this reflects a deeper dependency masked as independence. What appears as strength is often avoidance of vulnerability. True autonomy does not require constant confirmation, but the narcissistic ego feeds on mirrored attention. Your outreach becomes the mirror that keeps the image intact. The critical insight here is that ego-driven dynamics are self-reinforcing. Each time you reach out to relieve someone else's insecurity, you step out of your own center. Jung warned that when we live for the reflection rather than the self, we slowly lose contact with our own psyche. So pause at this point and consider, if your silence threatens someone's identity, that silence is not cruelty, it is clarity. Power shifts the moment you stop offering yourself as proof of someone else's worth. All of these patterns ultimately lead to one central motive: control. Waiting for a narcissistic woman is not passive, it is strategic. When pride is involved, movement feels like surrender. By refusing to reach out, she maintains the illusion of superiority, even while emotionally invested. This is how waiting becomes her way of staying in control. Carl Jung often emphasized that the need to dominate others usually masks an inner fear of being dominated by one's own emotions. In this case, reaching out would mean acknowledging longing, uncertainty, and dependence, experiences that threaten the carefully constructed self-image. So instead of acting, she holds position. She waits, believing that stillness preserves power. Psychologically, this creates an asymmetrical dynamic. You are placed in motion, while she remains fixed. The longer you wonder, interpret, or anticipate, the more energy flows toward her. Control is not enforced through action, but through inertia. She becomes the unmoving center around which your thoughts begin to orbit. This is why waiting can feel so heavy on the other side. It creates pressure. It invites you to resolve the tension by making the first move. If you do, the hierarchy is confirmed. She did not chase, she was chased. Control is preserved without confrontation. But Jung also reminded us that what we refuse to face consciously begins to govern us unconsciously. Control maintained through avoidance is fragile. It depends entirely on your participation. The moment you step out of the dynamic by no longer reacting, waiting, or seeking resolution, the structure collapses. Stillness loses its power when it is no longer mirrored. The final reflection is this: waiting only works on those who feel compelled to fill the silence. When you choose not to move just to relieve tension, you reclaim authorship of your inner world. And that is where real control begins, not over another person, but over yourself.